please turn it off. It would help if I followed the same rule. As we have some public speakers in the room tonight, we will go through the fire drill. A fire drill is not expected, so if the alarm sounds, please evacuate the building quickly and calmly. Please use the stairs and do not use the lifts. Once out of the building, please gather outside the Lloyds Bank on the opposite side of the road. Exit by the door in which you entered the room or by the fire exits, which are clearly indicated by the standard green fire exit signs. If you need any assistance in evacuating the building, please make yourself known to a member of staff. Can I ask that everybody in the room turns their mobile phones off or to silent? This meeting is being live streamed and will be shown on YouTube on the Council's website. Moving forward to item number 2, apologies. I'm aware of apologies from Councillor Savetovic and Councillor Hartshorn, who is being replaced, Councillor Hartshorn, who is being replaced by Councillor Harbison. Are we aware of any other apologies? Item 3, to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of July and also the meeting held on the 8th of August. Are all members, do I have a proposer? Councillor Kenny. Anybody happy to second those? Councillor Downs. It's all members of the committee in agreement that I sign those meetings as an accurate As there are no abstentions, I shall sign those off. Item number 4, declarations of interest. Do any members have any interest that they wish to declare which are not printed on the schedule for tonight's meeting? Councillor Shepherd.
Chair, it's actually not my, it's just to inform the committee that Councillor Troman seems to have inherited my declarations of interest. I can assure members he's not a director of Wenbrook Community Centre. Thank you, Chair.
We will get those amended. Item number 5, public consultation. I've been informed that Councillor Condacor wishes to speak on items number 6, 7, 8 if there is one, 9, 10 and 11. And I've also been informed that Mr Peter Smith wishes to speak on items number 6 and items number 7. I must advise you that all speakers have 3 minutes in which to complete what they're saying. You have 3 minutes to complete what you wish to say. I will allow you slightly to run over, but I won't let you run too far. Moving forward to item number 6, the audit plan. Can I ask that Vicky present the audit plan?
Thank you, Chair. There are 2 reports within the addendum that was additional to the agenda. There's item number 6, which is the external audit plan. And then there is also 6A, which is the audit risk assessment. Both of these are going to be spoken by Will. He's going to talk you through them. They're both for 21-22 accounts year end. Thank you.
Thank you. So the first document that we'll run through is the audit plan, but I would first just like to give an update on the 2021 audit. So we're hoping to sign that this week now, which will be good. It's just going through its final review, and we'll issue an updated AFR to the committee as we discussed previously. So in the AFR we presented in August, there were just a couple of adjustments that we were still working through. They've all been done now and we're happy with them. So we're just going to issue that updated report to committee at some point, possibly tomorrow, and then signed by the end of the week. So into the audit plan then. So this is the audit plan for the 21-22 audit. It sets out the work performed to date and our risk assessment that's come out of that work, and it highlights the significant risks we've identified for our audit and the risks of significant weakness from value for money. So if you please turn to page 6, this sets out the 3 significant risks that we've identified. So you've got the valuation of land and buildings, and that's consistent with the previous year, the valuation of the pension liability and management override of control. So all 3 of those are consistent with last year. Materiality has been set at 1.9 million, so that is roughly 1.8% of your 2021 operating expenditure. And trivial, which is the threshold to when we have to report to committee, is set at 95,000. There are 2 risks of significant weakness in relation to the value for money conclusion. These are management of the financial position over the medium term and key staff turnover. We'll get into those in a little bit more detail in a bit. We started the audit in August, just doing some of the planning work whilst we were still finishing off 2021. And whilst it says here that our visit for the final accounts will take place during October to December, we still need to agree with management the exact logistics of how that's going to work, and it might not be right at the start of October, but once that's agreed, we'll go full steam ahead, hopefully have it done by Christmas is the plan. Our fee for the 21-22 audit is also set out on this slide, and the 2021 fee has not yet been agreed with the Director of Finance, which is why it isn't set out in this plan yet. So page 7, we start to move into the significant risks now. So the first one's a mandated risk of fraud in revenue and expenditure. Now, we've rebutted that risk for the council because we see there to be a little incentive to manipulate revenue recognition. We also don't think there's that many opportunities to manipulate revenue recognition, and the culture and ethical frameworks in the council mean that all forms of fraud are unacceptable. And this slide also does set out the testing that we will still perform. So whilst we don't think it's a significant risk, we will still perform testing on the revenue streams and the various types of expenditure that the council has. Page 8 moves on to a couple more significant risks. So this one's management override. So this is another mandated risk under ISA 240. In the previous audit, we identified 2 recommendations. So those recommendations were around super users, and also not all journals are authorised. So we will keep this as a significant risk, and we'll do quite a lot of work around journals, estimates, testing the estimates and understanding the methods and assumptions that management have used to determine those estimates, and also look at the experts, if any have been used, to determine what their assumptions have been. On this slide, we've also got the significant risk for PPE valuations for land and buildings. So this is purely due to the size of the estimate. The significant risk was there last year as well. So we'll look at things like the competency, the capability of the expert, the assumptions they've used, and we'll test a sample of them and go back to supporting evidence on those. And there's other tests we do as well, which are also out on that slide. Page 9 then goes on to the significant risk for the valuation of the net pension fund liability. Again, this is due to the size of the estimate and the complicated assumptions that are used there. So the testing set out on this slide, it's quite similar in a way to what we do on PPE, in that we'll look at the expert, what the expert's done, the sort of capabilities, competency of the expert, and evidence for any assumptions they've used. We also have our own auditor's expert that will look at some ranges, and we'll consider whether your actuary has ranges within what our expert is saying. So that's that one. Page 10. So this sets out the requirements of the revised ISA 540. And this ISA all covers sort of accounting estimates and the related disclosures. So as part of this, we need to understand whether audit committee members understand the methods and models used to make accounting estimates, whether they oversee management's process for making estimates, looking at sort of models and monitoring of the activities that management undertake, and do audit committee members evaluate how management made the estimate. Page 11 sets out the additional information we'll be asking for from management this year, and page 12 sets out just some further requirements of ISA 540, specifically around estimation uncertainty, and we'll need to look into the disclosures that the council put into their financial statements around that, and whether there is a material estimation uncertainty for any of their estimates. We will also present in the next item the informing the audit risk assessment document. So this is some requests that we've given to management and their responses, and we'll just need committee to look at those. So the next one, or next page to look at, is page 14, and this details in a bit more our materiality limit for the 21-22 audit. So it's been set at 1.9 million. As I said before, trivial's 95k. So that means any errors above 95k will be reported to those charged with governance, or yourselves as the audit committee. And we've also set a lower level of materiality for senior officers' remuneration, and that's 25,000. Page 15, this sets out the work we will do in relation to the IT systems at the council. So this includes streamlined assessments of the IT general controls, walkthroughs where we actually look at how a transaction gets through the system and whether the controls in place are followed for that transaction and whether they're adequate. And then we also look at the overall business processes. So for those that we're not doing a walkthrough on, we'll get management to tell us what the business process is for that sort of area of the finance system. Now, page 16 onwards, we start to move into value for money. We cover 3 areas under our value for money work. These are improving economy, efficiency and effectiveness, financial sustainability and governance. There's a little bit of detail on that slide as to what is within each of those categories. Page 17, so this goes on then to what our risks of significant weakness are that we've identified so far. So these are just areas where we're going to focus a bit more of our work and look into in a bit more detail. So the first one, as I mentioned before, was management of the financial position over the medium term. And this is largely due to the reserves position declining over the sort of next few years and the challenges that have been faced over last year, which have impacted financial planning. So we'll look at sort of the medium-term financial strategy and the plans management has in place and go through those. And we'll also have interviews with key management for that one. The second one is then key staff turnover. So there's been a lot of changes in key staff over 21-22 and into 22-23. And that has led to a delay in finance reports being reported to committees. So we'll review the process the council has in place now and also any other changes that have happened due to key staff turnover. Page 18, this sets out the team and the logistics. I suppose the change on this slide is that it's now Laurelyn is the engagement lead and not Grant. So Laurelyn will be the one that signs the opinion for the 21-22 financial statements when we get there. Laurelyn isn't here today, but I'm sure she'll show up to the next one. It does say on this slide, as I mentioned previously, that we'll be starting in October. We're not clear at the moment exactly when that will be, and that is partly on our side, as well as we're looking at our portfolio as a whole to see when we can fit all the audits in. Page 19 sets out the fees, or the planned fees, for the 21-22 audit. And then page 20 is our independent and non-audit services, which we deliver. So these are HB certifications, so housing benefits certification, and the pooling of housing capital receipts, which we've done in previous years. So that was a bit of a whistle-stop tour through the plan. If there's any questions, happy.
As the first part of this is for noting, I was going to invite you to speak after the second part, if that's okay. Is that okay with you, Mr. Smith? Do any members of the committee have any questions? Councillor Tromans.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask, can you give me some idea of the scope when you said you were going to look at the key staff turnover? Is that just finance or is that wider in the organisation?
Thank you. So it will be wider because there's a lot of projects going on at the council at the moment, and we need to look at sort of the project management aspect, how key staff have impacted that. There's also then internal audit. We need to look at how internal audit have been affected, and then there is the finance element as well.
Any further questions? Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you, Chair. It's just in relation, you've mentioned the valuation of the pension scheme. So are you going to, it says there about the estimation, represents a significant estimation in the financial statements. So when you be looking at that more in depth in terms of whether we're paying the right amounts, whether we've estimated either too high or too low, I presume.
So with the pension liability, what happens is you get an actuary report. So your experts come back and say, this is the valuation of your liability, looking at sort of contributions paid and the assets within the pension fund and divvying it all up to the individual members of that pension fund. So we look at that actuary report, we compare it to, we do some analytical reviews essentially based on sort of staff pay to what percentage the contributions are and whatnot, and see if it all ties through. We then also get an auditor's expert who comes in and says, so for this assumption that the actuary has used, we would expect to see it between 1% and 2%. And then if it's within that range, we deem that acceptable. But if it's outside of that range, then we'll start to challenge management, pension fund, or the actuary as relevant to determine why it's not within that range. Now, we also agree, so the actual contributions, that gets sort of paid over and that gets given to the pension fund, we test that back to the sort of reports that that information's come from. So that, yeah.
Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Chair. It's regarding the significant risk regarding the valuation of land and buildings, because this is the second year it's been on the report. What more do we need to do as a council to move it down from a significant risk from an audit point of view? Is it the case that we might need to get additional outside external valuations? Sorry.
So valuation of land and buildings has actually been a significant risk at every council for a good few years now. The reason for that is just the scale of the estimate. It's just so big that it's multiple times materiality and there's so many assumptions involved. And ultimately with valuations, if you ask one value and you ask another value, you'll likely get a different answer. So we need to assess the reasonableness of that estimate, and because of the size of it, it only takes a small sort of error in an assumption or disagreement in an assumption to make a material error for the financial statements. So that's why it's a significant risk. Now, I don't think there's anything necessarily that the council can do to get rid of that significant risk. I think it will be there for the foreseeable future. I know the council do already get valuations for them, and that's what we audit, essentially.
Any further questions? The recommendation is that we note the contents of this plan. Do I have a proposal for that? Councillor Kenny-Up. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Beetham. Are we all in agreement that we note the contents of this report? That's fine, that's carried. Over to you for the next bit, Will.
Thank you. So the next document is the Informing the Audit Risk Assessment. So the purpose of this document is to contribute to effective communication between ourselves as the auditors and you as those charged with governance. So under the ISAs, we have specific responsibilities to communicate with yourselves, and it does emphasise how important two-way communication is. So as part of the risk assessment, what we do is we have a list of questions here that cover just general inquiries of management, fraud, laws and regulations, related parties, going concern and accounting estimates. Those queries were sent to management and management have given us their responses. So we now ask for Audit Committee to review those responses and to approve that they are accurate, or if there is any more information they would like to add into those responses, then please let us know and we can add those in.
Councillor Condicle, I gather for you speaking.
Thank you very much, Chair. A couple of things that are really worrying me about the lack of financial staff at the moment, and we're boosting it up so we'll catch up, is we've effectively been running blind for a while. And one of the big things we're doing is having a ginormous capital programme. So our borrowing is going to go from, I think, roughly 80 million to 160 million. So I'm really concerned, obviously, about doing this with very little visibility, and also the lack of things like Treasury Management Plan. We used to get bored with the Treasury Management Plan coming back to Audit Committee time and time again, when actually absolutely nothing was happening. Interest rates were 0.25% flat, etc. We're under-borrowed, and nothing was happening. Whereas now, interest rates and everything's going all over the place. We're probably still under-borrowed. I don't know, because we haven't had a Treasury Management report for ages, and that really worries me. The other thing, there are all sorts of issues. I'd love to have a meeting with the external auditors to go through them, because it's quite a big report. But there's things like the Bedworth Civic Hall, which is no longer in use. And it's obviously being valued as an entertainment value at whatever. And it's whether it comes back into use or not isn't yet planned. But that is actually a big asset that in some way at some point will either have to be upgraded or written off, or whatever you do. So I think we need visibility on those sort of things. And it'd be great if the accounting system's running with a lag, that if there's a bit more of an effort so that opposition members were given the financial information as soon as it came out, because our committee meetings were timed to when financial information was supposed to come out, and we've been getting late financial information. So I think we need to sort of have an interim arrangement whilst we're doing catch-up to give us opposition councillors reassurance that things are actually running well. Thank you, Chair.
Mr Smith.
Just to echo Keith's concerns, my concerns are the same as his. There's no transparency in this council. The corporate nature of it, yeah, they've conjured up £200 million and moved it into private hands, yeah. That's £200 million worth of debt that the local residents will have to pay back and their children, yeah, with no real transparency. There's so much conflict of interest. The only members of the boards are people from here, Warwickshire County Councils and other local cronies, yeah? There's no real interaction with the people of this borough. Haven't heard one person in the thousands I've spoke to in the last 6 months that said they want an hotel. Yet they're going to have to pay for it. It's their £200 million. You lot don't. You corporate politicians never pay for anything. It's always, you conjure up debt on the back of good, hard-working people, yeah, and then do what you want with it. Never consult us. That's my concern. And the concern also for the auditor here is that they clearly haven't been doing a very good job. Because if I can find the conflict of interests, they should have done years ago. Yeah? And it's incumbent on your company to do a good job. Yeah? If you don't, trust me, the people in Nuneaton will find out because I'll be outside telling them. Okay? Thank you very much.
The recommendation is to approve the audit risk as detailed in Appendix 1 of the report. Can we open that up for discussion? Councillor Shepherd.
So you're leaving out the debate side, Chair. Thank you for the report. I think for me it'd be helpful to know which of our directors or management team have answered the questions. Because, you know, you've gone on to impacts of law and regulations. Now, I wouldn't know whether that's been answered by the finance officer, whether it's been answered by our chief executive, etc. So I think, you know, even if it was only initials, at least it would help to know where it's sat and with whom it's sat. I think my main concern is actually, while you've done a very good job and what you're going to be looking at in the future and have looked at, I think our own internal audit has fell short this year because actually it has been deferred from July. It's been deferred again this meeting when actually it should have come back to this meeting. So I've got concerns that actually we're not seeing our own internal audit procedures. But thank you for the report.
Will?
So in terms of who's filled out the report, the questions went to sort of the head of finance and they've then distributed them out to sort of people within internal audit, people within the legal team to get the responses. For the initials, I'll add those, or I'll ask Lucy to help me just add those in just to make it clearer. But thank you.
It's probably worth just noting, I did put a response to you, Councillor Shepherd, about internal audit. There is a plan with internal audit now. We had some sickness, as you're aware, the head of internal audit has been off long-term sick, and we did put an interim person in post. Unfortunately, that person also suffered sickness has left the council. So we've had a bit of an unfortunate run in recent, and although the report is finished, we're unable to present it until we have a qualified auditor, but there is a plan in place at the moment, so by November we should have something here to you.
Any further questions? Councillor Troman, do you want to ask a question? Anybody have any more questions? Do I have a proposer then to we approve the audit risks as detailed in Appendix 1? Councillor Kenyon. Councillor Troman, do you happy to second? All those in favour? That's unanimous. That's carried. moving on to item 7, the annual report. I understand that Phil Richardson is going to present this for us.
Yes, so yes, thank you, Chair, and apologies for zooming in. Unfortunately, I'm still COVID positive, so I didn't think it was something I wanted to share with members of the committee. The agenda item 7 is the annual report that is approved each year by this committee. It is something that the Committee on Standards in Public Life recommend as good practice, and therefore we follow their guide and hence produce this report. So what you have is a draft report setting out the actions and outcomes from the last municipal year. So it's really for the committee to tweak it if they so wish. And then in the report itself, you'll see that there's some proposals in terms of how we would go about publicising it. I think I should add that we did mention in there Bedworth Civic Hall, but obviously with the Civic Hall not being open at the moment, we may not be able to do that. But we can certainly use the libraries as a conduit for getting the message out, as well as the websites, etc. So, Chair, unless there's any questions, I don't wish to say any more on the report itself.
Councillor Condacourt.
Thank you, Chair. I'll go straight to the conclusion because I'm really impressed. The Council's aim is to continue to develop and maintain a climate of trust and respect in which members, officers and partners work effectively together to deliver the Council's strategic and operational policies. This is done in an honest, objective and transparent and accountable way to ensure standards are maintained to the highest possible level. Well, that would be great if that was all happening all the time. I do think it'd be nice if we'd acknowledge a bit more in this report. We've had a hard time, and yeah, I think most people do want us to have more respect and more transparency and things work better. But I do think it's a bit of airbrush, this report. So that was my main comment. Yeah, I think we do need to learn how to respect each other better and get things working better. But I think if we have a report that said everything's marvellous, I think that might not actually be believed. And I am really surprised that our head of audit and governance is named as at the bottom, because I haven't seen her for a year. So maybe if we actually put down on the report who really wrote it, that might actually also add to the air of transparency. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Smith.
I'd just like to say that I hope you're all aware that none of you will ever get voted in again in this town once the corruption's exposed.
Can I just say that if you have details of that, more than happy for... If you have details of corruption and any evidence for that, you're more than happy to bring it in, and we will have to investigate it. And as you've raised it now in the committee... If you have evidence, you're more than welcome to bring it in and we will look at it. Do we have any questions? Councillor Beetham.
On the letter itself, or in regards to public participation, because my question was in regards to the annual report, but I believe we need to propose that and second that first, if I'm correct.
Would you like to propose that?
I would do, thank you, Chair.
Seconded by Councillor Kenner. Would you like to ask your question now?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So just this one be for Councillor Richardson, not Councillor Richardson, promotion again, for Director Richardson. And that is in regards to the e-petitions and the lowering of the petition amounts. Was that in last municipal year, or should that be included in this current report? That's question one. And the second thing I would ask is that on the introduction on page 17, on the first paragraph of bullet points where it says reviewing and updating the Mayor's protocol following the decision to do away with the civic car, I would just ask that that be slightly amended for a more, let's say, removal of the civic car from the budget, etc. That's all.
Do you want me to respond, Chair?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yes, the mayor. Sorry, we can certainly tweak the reference to the mayor's in the mayor's protocol to the removal of the vehicle. In terms of e-petitions, yes, that was approved at council in April, so it is. It should be in there. I think it's referred to that the petition scheme was reviewed, but if you want something a bit more specific about the sort of the adjustment to the levels within the petition scheme, then we can certainly do that as well, Chair.
Did we have a comment for Councillor Condacor's comment about the head of audit and governance?
Well, as you know, Chair, Linda is still with us, so as an officer of the council, it would be inappropriate to remove her from the report, Chair.
Are there any further questions? In that case then, the recommendation was that the draft 2021 annual report as set out in Appendix A be approved and the report be published as indicated. Are we all in agreement with that? That is carried. Item number 8, any other items? Does anybody have any other items? No. In that case then, I will move us on to item number 9, which is the exclusion of the public and press. Under section 100A4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public and press be excluded from the meeting during consideration of the following item, it being likely that there would be disclosure of an exempt information, the description specified in the paragraphs listed. Do I have a proposer for that? Councillor Kenyon. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Green. Okay. All those in favour? All those against? Abstentions? I believe that's carried. Therefore, can we stop the live stream? And may I ask the members of the public to leave the chamber, please?